Hi there, hope you're having a great week. So as you can see, I don't have my guitar. If you've been following along my videos, you know that it's being repaired at the moment. So, since I cannot record any music video anyway, I thought this is a perfect occasion to talk a bit about my new single, which is going to be released on February the 5th, this Friday. I'm going to show you the kind of sounds I'm using, the kind of vibe I'm going for, why I arranged things in a certain way. So, it's going to be your classic behind the scenes look. And it's gonna be fun, so let's get right to it, and I'll see you after the video. Right, so here we are in my Pro Tools session, and let's just have a listen to the intro, shall we? So it's basically what we have here is this main synth right here, playing this kind of 3-chord sequence. So this is the first one, second one, third one, and then the second one again. So it's basically 3 different chords, and once it's done with its pattern, I'm repeating it, but this time around it's jumping across octaves. And this is something that you'll hear me repeat all throughout this video is, if you're gonna duplicate something, don't just copy paste, Make it different in one way or another. And if you want to take it one step further, don't just copy it, but add something on top of it too, which is what I did down here with this lead. So, not only does it jump octaves, our previous one, but we have this new lead layered on top of it. What else do we have? We have the drums, of course. And in the beginning, it's like you're outside the club, right? Just hearing the bass, but then that low pass filter is slowly opening up, letting the high frequencies through as well. And all of that kind of contributes to building some tension. It's like, we're in the process of getting somewhere. I don't know where we're getting to, but we're getting there. So you got that. Another usual suspect in that tension building is the white noise riser. So yeah, that's it for the intro. So let's see where it takes us. Right, so first things first, our main synth pad is still going on with that 3-chord sequence. And again, the first time around is just single chords, and the second time around it's doing that octave thing again. What I did there is I just copy pasted it, but there is a bunch of stuff going on. So in the beginning we have a 4 to the floor kick, which works in conjunction with the bass. We didn't have any bass before, now we do. So that alone kind of fills out the sound a lot, and we got an extra pad layered just underneath our main pad doing this thing. Very melancholic. I'm enjoying that quite a bit. And of course, I'm absolutely crazy about, Foley sounds, dialogue, so I got some of that here as well.
Someone or something was in here when I came in.
Pretty scary, huh? So you got that. Oh yeah, and this kind of fluty lead creeping in there as well, with a lot of delay. Because up until this moment we've had a lot of pad sounds, I feel, right? So I wanted to change things up a bit with a lead. And then yeah, we're repeating that again. But this time around we have a slap bass, you know, to add some more rhythm. And talking about rhythm, the drums now are completely different because instead of that 4 to the floor kind of very regular kick, we have something that is a bit more syncopated, a bit more funky. So completely different vibe, but again, it's still that same 3-chord sequence, right? Super fake sounding male choir. I wanted to go for that, you know, early digital samplers kind of sound. So that's what they would do back at the beginning of the 80s. Just record someone singing a note and then extend that across the keyboard so that you could play different melodies based on that same one note, which would result, of course, in a very fake sound like this one. So why not? And again, white noise riser, I don't even mention that one because we're still building up the tension. So basically in the second part here, we are repeating the first part, but changing things up, not only layering new tracks, but also changing the rhythm so that it sounds different. But that feeling of we are in the process of going somewhere, right? We're not there yet. That is still there. And it's going to take us straight into the next section, the third one. Okay, so a lot going on here. This is the tension releasing moment. This is a bit like a drop. So first thing I want to mention here are the drums. Let's have a listen to just the drums. See that there, that was basically just a hand clap, you know? Just a hand clap, but with a ton of reverb and the snare before it as well. So I was picturing this kind of enormous abandoned warehouse with someone sitting right in the middle, clapping their hands with this huge echo. And that's kind of the vibe I was going for. And again, since this third section as well, there is a repetition, I didn't just copy paste because I don't want you guys to think I'm lazy or anything. So the second time around, we're switching to a somewhat faster paced drum pattern as well to give you a different kind of vibe. Sound effects wise, we have some crows here, right? Which I think work very well in conjunction with this track right here. Now this time the choir sounds different from before, right? This time there's a ton more reverb, plus it's a single long held note. So, you know, it doesn't even have that many opportunities to sound fake because it's not doing anything except staying on that note. So this time around I'm kind of able to picture, you know, imagine small church in the countryside, it's raining outside, there's thunder, and every now and then it lights up the interior of the church and you see a bunch of guys singing these ominous long-held notes. And outside the church you got a cemetery, graveyard, and there's crows on the tree. So, you know, it's got a bit of that horror vibe, I think, these two sounds together, which is one of the things that make up this third section here. The other one being not so much of a horror vibe as much as a very aggressive kind of warlike vibe. And here's what I mean. First off, we got this, I'm loving this kind of dialogue vocal snippet here.
I'm not in the habit of taking orders from a machine.
Is that so? Right? So he sounds very angry, and yeah, it gives off those kind of aggressive vibes. Another such track here, let me see. See, that is a problem of mine. I never give tracks names. So what you see down here is the default name Pro Tools gives them, which makes it kind of hard to look for tracks, you know, but let's Let's see if I can find it. Yep, it's this track right here. Doesn't it sound a bit like, you know, those sonars in submarines? So again, a cool sound, just adding to that warlike, aggressive kind of vibe. And of course, one of the biggest elements there would have to be '90s kind of acid, very aggressive, distorted lead. We got one here as well. And on the second repetition, of course, you know by now that something needs to be added. A harmony, basically, to get a fuller sound. So yeah, this section right here, we're finally releasing the tension. There is a ton of tracks going on. The church, the cemetery for that horror vibe, the angry guy who had some beef with the machine, and the submarine to get that aggressive, warlike kind of vibe. And at this point, I think we have squeezed all we could out of that initial 3-chord sequence. Even though in this part it was just one of those 3 chords, but I think we've done everything we could. We had an intro where we kept building the tension. We had a section with different rhythms going on, but still the tension was being built. We released the tension. It said everything it could say, right? So now, where does that leave us? We need something different, something new. I've said it before, if you're copying things, make sure to add something, but you reach a point where you can't just keep copying, right? You need something completely new, a new chord sequence, new patches, new sounds. And that's exactly what I did in the next section right here. So that would be section number 4. So, first of all, we got a new chord sequence. It's 4 different chords, and they are very different from the first 3 ones, right? Second of all, since we're starting a new chapter almost, it's a new adventure, I'm taking away most of the things. So there's no drums, no bass, no aggressive leads, no nothing. It's just these very soft, ethereal almost, pads. And this kind of foggy lead, very atmospheric. I don't know, like in the previous section, you know, it was dark, it was scary, there was a bit of horror. And then all of a sudden we fainted in the midst of the fight. And we woke up the next day and we were lost somewhere in a foggy forest. I don't know, that's kind of the vibe I got. So with this section, I have introduced to you our new chord sequence, which is going to serve as the basis for the next few sections. And it was a very soft one, but you know, it's good to take it slow because we just got acquainted with these new chords. But once this section is over, we kind of need to start building that tension again, because the show must go on. The song needs to take us somewhere. It gets boring if it's just static, if it just leaves us in the same place all the time. And so that's what it did. On the next part here, part 5, that would be, I'm starting to build up the tension again. Slowly. So nothing crazy going on here. It's the age-old trick of starting with just the low frequencies. I've talked about this before, using a low-pass filter and slowly opening it up. What I did differently here is, as I was bringing back in those high frequencies, I started cutting away the low frequencies. So it never got to the point where we had both the lows and the highs at the same time. There was always something missing. And that was key here because I want to build the tension, right? I want you, the listener, to feel like, okay, we're getting somewhere, but we're never really getting there, right? Because once we got those high frequencies back in, we lost the lows. Let me show you what I mean, because talk is cheap. So just the lows, slowly opening up, But towards the end of the section, it's just the highs. So no body, no energy. So that leaves you, you don't feel safe, you don't feel like you can relax. You feel like you're in the middle of a journey and you haven't arrived yet. So you need to keep on moving. So usually what would follow this section would be a tension releasing section, so a drop. And we have that here on location 12. But we're not quite there yet. There is locations 10 and 11 in between the section we just saw and the drop. So what is happening there? Well, let's have a listen. So basically, on one hand, I didn't feel like we had built up quite enough tension with just the previous section, right? So I wanted to drag it out a bit longer. And number two, I wanted to kind of play around with this. It's become a common trick to delay the drop. So, you build up the tension, and when everybody expects the drop to come, you put in an extra section and then the drop comes. So it's something unexpected, to keep things fresh and interesting. So what we got here is a very slow drum beat again, using the same trick as before. The reverb. And that works because there is a lot of space in between hits. Right? So we need to fill that space with something. But if we were to put in, say, percussion or a hi-hat, then all of a sudden it would turn into a much faster kind of drum pattern. So the reverb tail is ideal for this because it fills up those spaces nicely without really making the drum beat sound busier, right? So that's a nice trick there. Another thing I wanted to point out here is this kind of synth string. And what I think is cool about it is that it feels like it's slowly drawing near, then all of a sudden it's right there in your face, and then it's far away again. So you can hear that in this section especially. So it starts from afar, then it suddenly comes straight to your face and then it goes back again. But yeah, I like that vibe. It gives me that foggy forest kind of vibe. And remember, we're still using the same 4 chords as before, but with new tracks and new kind of sounds and little tricks, we're making them sound like something pretty different. That being said, the star of this section, without any doubt, would have to be this pad down here, the wobble pad. Right, sounding pretty massive. And the secret behind this kind of sound is a low pass filter. So basically it's just a filter opening up and closing down at different rates. So in the beginning it's relatively slow. Wow, and then it gets faster. Wow, 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 wow. But basically it's just a low pass filter. And you've heard me mention those kinds of filters before. I just love them. I mean, there's so many different things you can do with them. They are the single coolest thing about synths. Just so much you can do with them, right? So again, on this section as well, we have this little pattern that is repeated as well. But as you know by now, you cannot just copy paste, right? So you need to add something more. So the second time around, we have this kind of little lead sound. Nothing special. The cool thing about it, I think, is that it's not in a very static place in the stereo spectrum. So every single note comes from a different area. The first one maybe comes from the left, the second one from the right. So you cannot really pinpoint exactly where it is within the stereo spectrum. So we got that, and of course, our good old friend is coming back, the church choir. So at this point, we have reached silence, really. Like, all you hear is just the reverb tail of the snare, but no other tracks are playing. So now I feel like I've teased you enough. I have dragged this out as much as I could. Now it's time to finally give you that satisfying drop where the tension finally gets released. And here it is. So this is the busiest part of the song, where the most tracks are happening at the same time. Although, there is something I want to show you. Speaking about tracks happening at the same time. Yeah, again, same problem. I really should start naming the tracks. Okay. Right, so this I think is interesting. I've got two leads going on here. They're both relatively distorted leads, so they run the risk of kind of fighting against each other for space in the mix. So a nice little trick there would be, instead of having them happen at the same time, each doing its own thing, why not alternate them? You know, while the first one is playing its pattern, the second one stays relatively quiet, and then once the first one is done, the second one starts playing. So have a listen. That was the first one, now the second one, then the first one again. That I think is a nice little trick to avoid things getting messy, because you want that kind of wall of sound with several different tracks, a very full sound, but you run the risk of getting a muddy mix where you cannot really make out the single instruments. And one way to avoid that, besides, you know, good mixing and proper EQing and whatever, is good arrangement, making sure there is never too much going on at the same time. So yeah, at this point, I feel like our second 4-chord sequence has said all it has to say as well. You know, we had a very quiet section, we had a tension build-up section, we had a tension release delaying section, we had a drop. At this point, we've reached the point where we have squeezed all the juice we could out of it, and now it's time to bring in something different. But at the same time, we are, let's have a look at the time here, we are past the 3 minutes mark, so it could be a good idea to slowly bring the song to an end. So instead of adding yet another section with yet another chord sequence and different tracks, I thought, okay, this might be a good moment to bring in the first 3-chord sequence and to change the arrangement and the style of it to make it sound new and fresh, but it's still those same 3 chords. So let's have a listen to that. Some Latin percussion, why not? A funky guitar. Our good old slap bass. So we're back in the 70s, right? We're just having fun at the disco, but remember, the chord sequence is the same one as the intro. But now it sounds like this. So one last thing I wanted to point out here is that try and pay attention to the hi-hat part. It sounds like it's playing 16th notes, but if we solo the drums, now it sounds like it's playing 8th notes. So why do we feel like it's playing 16th notes when we unsolo the drums? Well, because then we bring in the tambourine as well. Right, so it's just an extra layer to spice things up. Right, so we've brought back the 3-chord sequence, which will allow us to bring this song to an end. And to show you how I concluded it here, I'm gonna need to switch projects because I've used a plugin which basically it only works on rendered stereo tracks. So what I did was I exported all of these tracks you see, I exported them into one single stereo track. That's all I did. So let me open that project here real quick. Right, so this blue track right here, That's basically all our previous project in one single track. And if I play it back, you know, now I can show you what I did down here. There we go, location 14. Let's have a listen. A classic old trick, right? It's the tape stop. So I don't know if you've ever listened to music on tape. I remember listening to quite a few tapes as a child, mid-90s. And basically once you pressed play, it would take a fraction of a second for the tape to reach its speed. So it would sound like it was accelerating and the pitch was going up as well. And conversely, once you pressed stop, it took, again, just a fraction of a second for the speed to slow down, and it would seem like the pitch was kind of going down as well. And that's exactly what I did here, except that instead of just a fraction of a second, it lasts a good 5-6 seconds here. But as you can see here, there's this green loop, which is the real conclusion of the song. And that is because I felt like, okay, we've had many different moments in this song, but never once, to me at least, it felt like a happy, relaxed kind of song, right? Remember the church and the graveyard and the angry guy who wasn't used to taking orders from a machine, and the sonar, the submarine, the war, the forest, the fog. It always felt a little scary or aggressive or uncanny and mysterious. So I thought, at least at the end, I want to give you a different kind of vibe. So I found this loop here, so let's have a listen. Now we all know what that is, right? So, you know, for one, it's a song we all know, right? Number two, it's a major key song. So major keys are usually associated with positive and happy emotions. Number three, it's very lo-fi, right? Clearly this has been sampled off vinyl because there's that vinyl crackle. It has a very mid-rangey kind of sound. Again, very lo-fi, very retro. So all of these things make for a very safe kind of atmosphere. This feels familiar. It doesn't feel scary. It feels safe. It feels like we've been kind of outside of our comfort zone for all of the song, and now finally we got back home and we feel safe and warm and back inside our comfort zone. So I wanted to finish off the song on a positive note. Right, so this is it. This is my new single. First of all, what did you think of it? How did you like it? Let me know in the comments. Second of all, as I said, it's going to be released this Friday, February the 5th. And I didn't plan on this, but it was a lucky coincidence that this Friday is also going to be a Bandcamp day. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means, very quickly, Bandcamp is a platform where I sell my music, and naturally whenever a sale is made, a certain share of that goes to Bandcamp. It's only fair. But since the pandemic started, every now and then they are doing a so-called Bandcamp day where they waive this revenue share. So all the money goes straight to the artists. And this Friday, February the 5th, is going to be one of those days. And to celebrate that, I'm releasing the single as Pay What You Want. Meaning that if you want to get it for free, you can totally do that. You just have to enter 0 during checkout. But if you enjoyed the single and if you want to get it and maybe also support the channel a bit, then I would really appreciate whatever amount, you know, no matter how small, I would really appreciate that. So just so that I put that out there. That being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.